In a lowly dale near a sparkling spring stood a little hut of stone. Here lived a shepherd who worked for a wage, and his kindly wife all alone. So many wandering people passed, all weary and thirsty each day. It worried the shepherd, since they were so poor they could give no bread away. One afternoon as he entered the hut, he said to his wife, "Don't you see, since we have so very little bread, we can at least plant a tree. Each spring and fall we will plant a tree, which will grow to provide a shade, and so with cold water and places to sit, make a comfortable rest in the glade." The trees grew wide, the trees grew tall. God hallowed their plan from the first, and many a wanderer blessed them there as he rested and quenched his thirst. The shepherd and wife grew bent and gray, and after they'd long been dead, no stone was set in the usual way. Grove and spring bore witness instead, and many a wanderer who pauses there to drink of the spring bows his head and murmurs a prayer for the two who are gone, who were poor, but gave what they had. Now this last song, or it isn't a song, well it really is a song, but as I don't know the melody, I just read my English translation of it. So that will be all about that. However, I have some songs that I have translated, and I'm going to sing that in the Norwegian and then in the English. Jeg havde valgt, den elsker jeg dog overalt. Den tenkte jeg skulle bli min trøst, og hvile ved med unge brøst. Men min veninde sveg sig ed, og rev min lykkestjerne ned. Nu står jeg inne og forlatt, med sorgen over tapte skatt. Der hender jeg glemme kan, som gav sitt hjerte og sin hand. Hver aften jeg i lunden går, hver jeg må falde langen tar. En aften stund med trørig mål, jeg hvilte ved en furenråd. Der hørte jeg små fuglen sang, og bort mitt grep den blå beklang. Der kom til meg en vandring, han talte til meg så forstand. Nu var forrede du, min venn, har du nå ingen trøst igjen. Nu var forgrede du, min venn, vår Gud i himlen lever enn. Han hjelper ved når det blir. Tror du på ham, kun godt han gir. Fuglen venter lysens dag, så venter jeg hver klokkeslag. På timmets glasset ende her, at jeg kan leve rettig. Well, I'll try to sing the English part now that I have written. With a pretty girl I fell in love. She seemed to me like one above, but soon she proved quite different far, for she pulled down my lucky star. A girl, this girl I cannot understand, who gave to me her heart and hand. I find her heart is but a stone, and I walk sadly and alone. One evening in a sylvan glade, I walked where once we two had strayed. I heard the little birdie sing, and oh, what pain my heart did wring. That evening as I stopped to sigh, a wandering man came closely by. He said, "Why do you grieve, my friend? God is not dead, nor this the end. Pray thou to God, and in him trust. He'll give you strength, for he is just. Forget this girl who broke your heart. Each morning brings you a new start. As wait the birds for light of day, so wait I for the healing ray, and pray to God to ease my pain, that I may learn to live again. He is just. Forget this girl who broke your heart. Each morning brings you a new start. As wait the birds for light of day, so wait I for the healing ray, and pray to God to ease my pain, that I may learn to live again. Now this is part of a song that Grandma used to sing. Of course, you know, there was about 30 verses of it, so I just picked out 2-3 that I thought you might get a little kick out of. This is the first verse of the song. Fjellbygden aktar på tiden, vintern och dagen är liden. Tar han öks på nacke i backe, går i dybe snö, upp till länder ner finner sig en trä, krokot till att se. Hugger derav mejor som plejer, bruge under slöjor på vägar. Now, I have written this down in the Norwegian, and under each word I put the English word, so you'll be able to read it and get the gist of it. Now, here are the other 2 verses. This one is about a woman who had a boyfriend. When she went to churn her cream, she took it out into the woods so she could be with him while she's churning. But for some reason, you had to go back to the house, and when she came back to churn, why, the cream was gone, and so was Tosin, the name of that boyfriend of hers. Of course, she's a married woman, wasn't supposed to have a boyfriend, so she didn't hardly know what to say or do. But finally, it says here, I'll sing it, and then I'll talk about it. Siden som det blev upptaget, Torsen and Romy har taget, blev den gode kvindig vid sindig, sa sig om en svär, sa en köp där star, findens hus där lar, banket röd och blå. Fick den tås att bäre mot sväre, aldrig mer att otro att väre. It's a funny kind of a tune. Anyway, it says, after it became understood and found out that Torsen had taken the cream, then the lady got kind of scared. She was kind of figured she'd be in trouble when her husband found out about it, and he did. He pounded her till she was red and blue, it said, and she had to take it too. And then she said she had to, then he made her swear that she'd never more be untrue. Of course, she didn't keep her word. But anyway, at the time, this seemed the thing called for. Then it said, tells about Malfrey, that was her name, as she was going to church. Malfrey, du hände skall skue, udi sin helgdag slue, når han hen till kyrkeman lirke, med sig runda skå, då må du mig tro. Han är ingen så, till en dansat sna, har han föder rappe, hällknappe, ligger som en ko på en trappe. I'll go back over it now. Malfrey, oh, you should just see her. when she gets on her church-going clothes. There's no when she goes to church, she kind of wobbles when she walks. Mad Cinderunda, and she's got kind of great big feet in her big round shoes. Dom or do make throw now, you must me believe, he says here. There's no one like her. Till now when she goes to a dance, how does she act then? Her with her great big feet. Says, does she keep time? Well, hardly. Hell knappe, he says. Well, hardly. Ligesum, that means just exactly like. And coup på en trappe, a cow on a stairway. I kind of thought you'd get a bang out of these verses. So I'm going to include them with the tape. And you can do. I advise you to keep them because you learn some words anyway from them. Well, I'm not going to sing that over again because I just have sung it. And I noticed that I had sung it once before in too high a key. And so the very end of it, you'll have to listen to it because I don't want to rub out all the rest of it. So I guess you'll have to just take it as it comes. However, I don't just know now what is coming next because I can't remember. It's quite a while since I did anything with this tape. Meanwhile, I had the piano taken over to Ann's, and then that corner in there, and I have got that cleaned up now, and I've got 2 sets of shelves. They're, I think, rather elegant looking. They're black walnut and black plastic insets. You'll find it on page 75 in the green stamp book. It calls for 9 books, and the number, I think, is well, I can't say for sure now. I haven't got the catalog here. But it's it measures 76 inches high, and they have kind of little pointed tops at the top. So you can tell what it is all right. It's, I don't remember now, but it's called the Quaker 6-Shelf Library Center. I've got 2 of them, and I've sent for a 3rd one, so that'll fill up that wall back there and contain my photographs. And the one in front of the window, I suppose every once in a while tape slips and just a kind of a little squeaky noise. I don't know what causes that, but I've had that trouble from the start. The only thing I know what to do is to just set the and let it settle for a day or 2. Then it seems I can go on again then fairly well. By the way, speaking of those shelves of mine, they're on page 75 in the new catalog. So you can tell what they look like if you want to look. The clock is running. I'm not bad, Lena, you know. When I took it off the piano and set it on that little table by the north window, here, you know, near the where I have the sofa bed. Well, it started to run, and it's run ever since. But it gains about 15 minutes a day, so keeps me busy setting it back. However, I'm glad to see that it runs anyway. I suppose one can say it's making up for lost time. It hadn't run for years. I think it must be at least 10 years it stood up there on the piano and didn't run. And I knew it wasn't broken, but I really didn't know what caused it to just simply stand there like a stubborn little mule. Run. I've written a translation for another little song here. I'll sing it first in Norwegian. Paul sin høne på haugen släppte, høne så lätt vid backen sprang. Då blev han rädd och då sprang han ette, då sa han räven med över sig så lang. Pizzan Paul, ge ikke bange, käften och mot det har hjälpet så många. Nu har han även fått höna mig för inche, jag tør nok resa hem och tälja more. Well, now here's the English. Paul and his hen. Paul, his hen on the hill set free. Quickly and lightly the hen ran ahead. Paul tried to catch her as fast as could be. Then he saw the fox catch the little hen instead. Pit, said Paul, I am not afraid. Maybe it was a rooster and never would have laid. When I grow up, I'll shoot the fox or trap him in the fall. And now I'm going home again and tell my mother all. Here's a cute little song I remember Aunt Mary singing to me. So when I was pretty small, because she used to put me on her foot and put her foot one leg over the other so that the foot was kind of free. And then she'd sit me on her foot and take hold of my hands and hold me and move her foot up and down. So it was really exciting. I always thought it was a lot of fun. And the song went like this. Ria ranka, hästen skoe blanka, sala selchiti, peka bort till nästa by, där morgon ria. Och när det kom fram så fann det ingen hemma, med de två små buffer som låg under bänken och lyckade sig på labben. Och när ungen kom in sa de bow wow wow. No onion come inside the mouth, bow, wow, wow. And now the meaning of all that is ria, ranka, make believe you're riding horseback with a silk saddle cloth, and you're riding on to the next town. And the horse's hoofs are very bright. It says, Sala silchiti, pekabur to nesta be, and that's where I'm going to ride. She always used to say our name, you know. And when we got there, why, nobody was home. The only ones home were two little dogs who lay under a bench and licked their paws. And when we came in, they said, bow, wow, wow. And then the baby came in, they said, bow, wow, wow. That meant, how do you do? Well, I certainly wish that I had kept track of what I put on this tape. But I just finished one side and then turned it over and began on the other. And for the life of me now, I don't know what I put on it. But after this, I'm going to make a record of what I put on, so that if I don't do it or finish it all at once, why, I will know at least what I have already put on. And can tell you now that on Easter Sunday, I was feeling very poorly indeed. But, well, first of all, Marjorie called me up. She already sent me a card, but she couldn't get down. However, then Daphne came over with some potato salad and some roasted moose meat and some little buns. And she said she'd made some without any frosting. And then they happened to drop on the floor, so she had to bring me some with frosting. And I had to cut that off for the dogs, of course. Then, well, anyway, then Anne Marie came over and the children. And children brought me Easter eggs that they had colored. And then Anne brought me a little loaf of homemade bread and a carton of frozen bean soup, a ham and bean that she had made the day before. And she put it was so solid frozen, so she put it into the fridge. I still have part of it left. It was good, though. I ate some last night. And so then I had a happy time. And yesterday, Hilda came over. I kind of just simply sit there. I was trying to eat a little something when she came. And I guess about for the first time she's been here and didn't get a lunch. I just didn't feel able to wait on her. And she brought a letter from Robert Norman. I had given her his address. But Robert has TB, He wrote and told me so. So that I'd take proper precautions about his letters. And then she brought this letter from him and was all set to hand it to me. And I said, I don't want any of that TB business. I'm not strong enough to take that sort of a challenge right now. So don't show me the letter. I don't want to see it. I don't want to touch it. You can tell me if there's any special news. And she said, well, he's going to have an operation for a rupture. Well, I said it won't be the first operation of that kind that Robert has had, because they'll probably just graft take some part somewhere else off from him and graft it in there. He's had that trouble before, because due to the fact that his lameness is what causes it. I don't know. I know Dr. Delmore performed such an operation on him once when he was here. And anyway, I told her about that, and I said, now, when you read his letters, you keep them in a separate place and wash your hands good with a little disinfectant, unless you want to have the TB. If you do get it, don't come over here, because I don't want it. And I got troubles enough without that. And I remember how Mother exposed me to it all the time when we were kids. She had TB people coming there all the time. She even had them bring the milk over to separate it in our separator. And that's nothing can be worse than that. Well, anyway, we were lucky that we could anyway stay alive in spite of it all. But now I'm not so strong anymore, and I don't care to be exposed to unnecessary problems. It might have sounded kind of unpleasant, but I was in the frame of mind that I really didn't care how it sounded, and I didn't offer her any lunch because I didn't see any reason why I should, feeling so punk and all. And you just sit there and stare at me for hours at a time. I wish she wouldn't do it. I think I'll have to just start hooking my door again, especially. I don't want that kind of company. It's very, very boring, and it takes strength, You have to sit there and try and think of something to say when all you feel like doing is falling flat on your face and letting it go at that. Well, anyway, she was here yesterday now, so I suppose hope she'll be satisfied for a while. Anyway, I played that back, and it really does sound terrible. By the way, it sounded to me like I'd said Lula, but it wasn't Lula, it was Hilder Johnson. Good old Hilder. Clifford had her come out to Palm Springs this winter for a while, and then Maxine drove out there and brought her back home as far as Alexandria, where they live, and then Leonard brought her home from there up here. So she had a lot of help getting around. A little snow here at Easter, and it was pretty cold. I hung out a little washing, and it simply hung there stiff as a board, just frozen. And today I went out and looked at my garden, and things looked kind of wheezing. I tried to dig a little quick, but I soon saw that I wasn't in shape to do much of that. So I put the plants I dug up. This was along one edge of the strawberry patch where some quack had gotten in. And I put the plants in a little lukewarm water in a pail. And then I brought that up to the house. I'm going to bring it into the porch, I think, though, because I don't want it to get too cold. I want to set those plants out, try to make a new row. Most of my strawberry bed is sort of, the plants are just simply giving up the ghost. And here and there's a fresh green one. And what I really should do, if I had my ordinary energy, I would dig up and just replant a couple of rows. And what I will get done, I don't know. But I, of course, will make a desperate effort to try and get at least one row in of new plants. And so on. But it's not going to be easy, I see that. I just hope that God will give me strength so that I will be able to do something outside. Well, you see, I'm keeping the tape you made and sent to me. I like to have some tapes of you, too, that I can play and listen sometimes. I'm glad that you have this chance. Maybe Ted can make some money in this copper mine. Anyway, I hope that whatever you make or have or do, that you'll be able to get up again. At least you yourself, if not anybody else. I I don't know. I guess I'll have to just cut this short now. I suppose that I must be pretty close to the end. I think on the other side, I didn't really get it finished, or whatever I was saying, but I don't remember now what it was I said either, so it doesn't really matter so much. Well, I'll be back. Oh, yes, you asked about Anne. Yeah, she's come back, but her hours are different now from her husband's. He goes to work at 11 and comes home at 7 in the morning. She goes to work between around 3 and 4 or some such time, and comes back about 1. And Daphne takes care of the kids, gives them supper over there. When they stay there when they come from school, and she gives them supper, and then she takes them over there to bed and stays with them until Anne comes. And Anne has to try to learn to drive the car now and bring it back from the plant, and then take Daphne home and then come back and go to bed. So it makes it pretty difficult. I'm sorry they couldn't both have had the same shift, but it seems that's impossible somehow or another. And of course, she's glad to get the work anyway. It isn't quite as hard as it was because she don't have to lift anything. Still, I noticed her hands looked bruised. I told her she should wear some finger stalls or wrap her palms with some kind of tape or something to strengthen her hands. But of course, she'll have to manage whichever way is best for her. I can't. Nobody can tell somebody else, just what to do. Well, now, tape and the little plastic case that you included last time. You sent 2, one on each tape. And now I've returned them both. And, I've returned the case, the one case on this other tape I sent you before, and now the second one on this tape. So if you have something of that sort that I could use to send your tapes in, well, I'd be glad if you would send it. Tag boards, or put things up. And of course I knew right where they were, and I went up and got them and gave them to him. And I said, you know perfectly well that you brought these over here and gave them to me to use. Well, of course, you couldn't deny that. He knew he had. And then the sheriff was right there, and I said, Melvin, this isn't a very nice way for you to act, considering that I even saved your life once from drowning at the risk of my own when we were kids. You remember that? Well, he couldn't say. He knew he had. All right. Well, I said, you know perfectly well I've never touched anything of Mother's, not even to borrow it when I could have. I could have borrowed the spinning wheel. She told me that I could. But I never did because I thought it would make her feel kind of funny not to have it. And I told her sometime I'll get some wool and then we can maybe do a little spinning together. But I never got around to it. The wool packs were so big and heavy and cost so much, and I really didn't need the wool or the yarn, either one, so I never got any. However, Melvin watched his chance when Mother was sleeping and went upstairs and created the spinning wheel. And when she was sound asleep, being so stone deaf too, he sneaked it out, and then he sent it out to Alton. And after Alton died and they went out there to the funeral, they came back here then, and Georgia was here to Mother's funeral. And then he had the nerve to ask me to write to Evelyn and ask her to send back the spinning wheel. They had asked for it, but she wouldn't let him have it, because Alton had thought so much of that. He had asked Melvin to try and get it for him. So that's what he had done when he sneaked it out of the house and sent it to him. Well, I said, do you think for 1 minute I'm going to write and ask to have that spinning wheel returned? After the way you did with it, you can get it yourself, or else leave it where it is. If Alton thought so much of it, and his daughter takes care of it. His daughter named Joni. Why let her have it? And I said, I can live without it. And it's a dirty thing for you to do to her, though. She should have been allowed to have given that to who she wanted. Well, once before, Marjorie had asked her for it. And then she said, and then also Alton had asked her for it. And then she said, well, I only have one daughter, and that's Naomi. So you see, she planned to give it to me. But I never asked her to do anything with any of her things, because I thought what she has belongs to her, not to any of us. And I don't like this idea of grabbing and carrying on about things like that anyway. I have enough anyway, so I don't suffer for the lack of it. But they wanted me to tell her to give it to George's daughter, Marjorie. And I never wrote to Evelyn, only to one letter of sympathy after my brother Alton had died, and I never received an answer from her. So I don't know what her attitude was or how she felt. But I know Claire said she was very unfriendly and wouldn't give him any of Alton's things. And so I don't know. It doesn't matter. She never paid the taxes on Alton's land or anything, so it was sold for taxes. So while she wouldn't give it to Claire, she didn't pay the taxes either. So I think she's kind of an ordinary person, must have been. I didn't know her very well, but I never made any requests for anything from her or of any kind in any way, and I'm glad I didn't. But I don't forget that Melvin did that. Well, then he to Grandma faithfully, and when Mother was out there, she saw quite a bit of her. Also, I think that she wrote and thought quite a bit of Grandma and was interested in old things. So I wouldn't have minded if she could have gotten the spinning wheel. But after all, I imagine this little Joni is probably a nice person, too. I know Georgie said she was. He didn't care for the boy, the younger boy of Alton's, but he did say that his daughter Joni was a nice little girl. Well, I guess I better go look after the meat. I've been out there a couple of times, but still not often enough because it became pretty dark brown looking. I bought this piece of beef, cost me $2.75. I thought probably I better cook it up now while it was supposedly fresh. However, I have no patience with cooking anything. To cook, you got to stay in the kitchen and watch what goes on, because the gas does make a hot fire. However, actually, I care so little for meat, and I care so very little for monkeying around in the kitchen that I'm very neglectful. When I put a thing on, I'm very apt to go away and just forget about it till I smell it burning. The second fall, we were at Martin's place. That would be about 1905. Aunt Mary came up and stayed with the Melvin, Georgie, and myself and Grandpa. And in the fall, when Mother went out and got a job cooking, she went up near Langdon that first fall. And and Alton went too, and I think Uncle Jake went too that year. That was, I think, about the last fall, though he made the attempt to go out to work. The arthritis bothered him so much. However, in 1905, Aunt Mary came up. She'd been married the winter before. We came up in 1904 from Northfield, and that winter, in February, why, John, of course, was up there hanging around all the time, courting her, trying to get her to make up her mind to marry him. And so then we saw her wedding dress and everything. She sent for it, and she had a navy blue sort of his suit, and then a waist to go with it. And Martin went along with them to Thief River, where they were married there. And then when they lived there for a while that summer. I don't know whether they had bought a house yet or not. I don't think so, though, not then. But not the house they lived in later, at least. But next fall, John went out to work in the harvest fields, as most men did at that time, where there was a chance to get to earn, they considered big money at $3 a day. Well, and Aunt Mary came up then to our place, or Uncle Martin's, or to stay with us kids and Grandpa. And then Mother went out, and Alton and Jake and Martin all went out to the harvest fields. So that fall she was there. Well, then when they came back, she went to Thief River for a while, but then they came back again. And they stayed that winter there with us. I remember then one day Aunt Mary said, "Let us go to Wanaska and buy some groceries." Well, of course, I was always anxious to do anything that possibly suggested excitement of some kind. And I was all set. At 4 o'clock in the morning, pitch dark, we started out. And we walked up as far as where Teagues lived later. There was the post office there at that time. And we stopped in there, and I think mostly because Aunt Mary wanted coffee. We had taken lunch with us. And we went on. We got to up to Wanaska. I don't remember what time it was. But anyway, I remember we loaded up there with whatever it was. I remember she bought yellow Lennox washing soap and sugar lumps and coffee. I don't exactly remember what all, but I know what I had to carry. It was the soap and the sugar lumps and the coffee. And anyway, it was plenty for me. I don't think, now you see, I was 10. I wasn't more than 11 years old. Well, anyway, we started out to go back. Of course, by that time, Aunt Mary was already pretty tired. Well, I was a little tired, too, but mostly I would have gone a lot faster if I could have, but of course she didn't walk very fast. Anyway, on our way back, we stopped in at Neri Dahl's for another rest and for coffee, and then again down to the Ranums, Alfred Ranum. You don't remember them, of course not, but that's where Teagues lived later on. By the way, Alfred Ranums had TB. His wife, Hulda, her name had been Hulda Larson. I guess that she had the TB maybe when she got married to him. She was kind of a pretty slender blonde girl. But she had so terribly many kids. It seemed like almost one every year until she had about 9 or 10. Well, of course, the TB took hold then, naturally she'd be so run down and worn out and all. Well, anyway, she got worse and worse and finally died eventually. So I always figured that place was a regular nest of TB germs. That's what I thought. Well, anyway, we stayed there for coffee again, and TB or not, Aunt Mary never believed much in germs any more than Mother did, Well, then we started out again to go home. Now, this is in February, and the days were short, and the wolves were quite numerous, I guess, must have been, because it wasn't too long. Well, we walked along on the ridge, along among the jack pines. There had been a sleigh through there, of course, off and on, somebody with a sleigh. And what they made the thing miserable was that the sleigh tracks all slanted. There wasn't a level place you could put your foot. You had to kind of dig in and go along on that slanting road all the time. That's what made it so terribly difficult. Well, anyway, as it finally began to get quite dark, and I could see the wolves going along on the side. And I told Aunt Mary, I said, we better try and hurry up. Oh, she said, we're going plenty fast enough. And I don't think she even noticed the wolves. But they didn't go in the road behind us. They stayed out in the brush along on the side. And at first I only noticed 1 or 2. And then there were more. I don't know how many there got to be because it got dark. And all you could see were eyes looking at you out of the dark. And we got as far as to where the road went down to where Paul Wallines lived at that time. Well, anyway, he wasn't at home very often, but his mother's sister, Christine Erickson, was an old maid, and her brother, John Erickson, was an old bachelor, and they two lived together there and made a home for Paul. When he was at home, he stayed there. He didn't care for his father's second wife or that big slew of kids he produced. He wouldn't live at home after his mother died, but went and stayed with his aunt, Christine, and his uncle, John. And after they got old and he grew up, he filed on land there, and Christine had land too. And then he made a home there and made a home for them, and made his own home there after he finally married. Well, anyway, we went down there, and Walter was there. And I said to Walter, the wolves have been trailing us right along. And then he said, well, I'll go with you home. He had a lantern, and he did. So we walked down across the meadow then and finally got home. I tell you, I was tired. I'd had plenty of that kind of walk. I thought, well, I'll never go there again, not with Aunt Mary, because she stops too often for coffee, and wasted the daylight hours, you know. Of course, I don't know yet to this day whether she noticed any wolves or not, but she must have. I don't think she wanted to talk about it for fear I'd be scared. Well, I kind of was, too, in a way. Oh, there used to be a lot of wolves down there at that time. I remember we could stand and look out through Martin's upstairs window toward the south. Of course, right close up near the higher land, there were willows. But further out, there had at one time been tamaracks, and they had been killed by fire. So in the winter time, we could easily see over and through the dried tamarack. The trunks of the trees didn't have any branches on. They were just poles, kind of blue-gray in color, and gradually all these were cut down and used for firewood. But at first there we could see over through them, and on the other side there were tamaracks that hadn't been killed by fire, and they were, of course, without leaves in the winter time, but they were thick. So we could see wolves coming out on the heavy crust of the snow, several at a time. And the dogs would come out from the willows from our side and bark, and the wolves would come out part way over on the crust from their side and howl. And of course this was very interesting for us. They looked to us, of course, the same as though they were all dogs. But of course it was Don and Rover on our side, and the wolves over on the south side. They never met, but they threatened one another, I suppose, and howled defiance and so on. The wolves would come out, and then they'd go back again, and they'd come out, and then they'd go back, and dogs likewise. And sometimes we'd even see a moose way over across. And but of course, the wolves, the moose, of course, would break through the crust, so they didn't attempt to come out too far. It's a wonder to me, the deer, that they weren't afraid of the wolves. I don't know whether these were timber wolves or brush wolves. I never did know, but I did later on see a real timber wolf up here at Lloyd's. He had trapped it or something, and it was quite like a big dog, quite long-legged and big. I really feel sorry for the wolves now. I think that they should be partly protected. I don't think it's right to kill every living thing that dares to appear in our forests. Did you get the tape I filled and sent to you? I sent it almost at once after I received yours. I want to keep this one that you sent to me, so I'll have something of yours. So I have that put away, and Daphne or Ann can play it when they want to if they ever get over here, so they can take time to listen. I don't know, Ann hasn't started work in Polaris, but Marlin was called back, but Ann hasn't been, so I don't know just what she'll do. I guess she still has her unemployment coming in, but after that plays out, she'll have to try to look for work. Of course, she would like to get back at Polaris. She had a hard job there, but still she needs to help to earn, because it'll be kind of short goings for her if she has to depend on Marlin, because they've got to make the payment on the house every month, and those two kids cost something too, in groceries. And of course, in the summer, the fuel won't amount to so much. But I think she has an electric stove, and I don't know what else. I guess the place is heated with a gas or oil furnace in the basement. So that has to be paid, of course. And Marlon plays every Saturday night and earns around $25 or $30 like that. So he kind of keeps that more or less, I think, for beer and gas for the car and so on. Well, I kind of like Marlon. He's always very pleasant and nice, but of course he's a human being after all and isn't perfect. I talked to Marjorie again last night on the phone. She said, first she told me a week ago or so that she had a good job lined up. The people who either are renting or have bought the house Barbara used to live in, that isn't far from Marjorie. We're both going to work at Polaris, and then they have three younger children at home, and they wanted Marjorie to stay there with them and just stay right over there. So that would be from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till they'd come home at night around 1 or 2. So she wouldn't have to feed the kids or anything, so it would be a pure gain. She would get $6 a day, she said, $30 a week. And then, of course, Saturday and Sunday she'd have off because the Polaris doesn't work over the weekend either. Well, now she told me that so far the father has been called back and is working at Polaris, but the mother so far hasn't been called back. So she is a little worried now whether she'll get the work or not. And of course, if she don't get the work, Marjorie won't get the work either. However, we'll have to hope for the best and see what turns up. Well, I guess you can hear the dogs barking. They're looking out the window, and I suppose they see those dogs across the street. You ought to see her when Daphne calls up and says she's coming over in the evening. Mitzi somehow gets wise. I think she can hear her on the telephone. And then she runs around the house barking and walking and waiting, running, yipping here and there and around, and keeps it up until she comes. And of course, she's very much, very fond of Daphne. Never forgets she was the one who took care of her when she was little tiny thing no bigger than your hand. Well, Tara, of course, takes her cue from Mitzi and does her share of the barking, too. When I said Mitzi, she turned around and looked. You can send your greeting to Mitzi. She's right here now by the microphone. Are you going to say something to Muriel? Huh? You don't know enough to say hello, do you? Huh? No. But she hears me talking, though, and she gets very much pleased to hear my voice when I turn it on, to play it back and see if I've got anything at all worth listening to there. And the dogs they're all attention when they hear my voice on the tape recorder. I think right here I'm going to tell you a little bit about our Seventh-day Advent neighbors, Willeens. As I already have mentioned him in connection with Paul. He was Paul's father and had been married the second time, and he had a big family of children. There was Lydia and Walter and Enos and Esther and Hannah and Ruth and Ines and Delbert and Edith and Eleanor, and after the old man died, there was Lawrence. So that was that. And of course, they believed in keeping Saturday in place of Sunday. Now, of course, that is a matter for each one's own opinions. And I don't say a word against keeping Saturday if they feel like keeping it. But I think they ought to allow other people to do as they feel they should do, too. However, old man Willeen never for one moment thought of other people or their opinions or rights. He had to never stop to talk Esther, I noticed something like it. When she's in the house, nobody else need try to think of anything to say because they're not going to have a chance to say it anyway. They're just going to have to listen to her. Well, her father was the same way, only his main subject was religion. And that, of course, chiefly the Seventh-day Advent type. Well, now they used to come over to our place on Saturday. They must have known that Saturday for us was a day for getting ready for Sunday. And that meant cleaning the floor. The floor was just some kind of a pine or popple or something. Anyway, it was had to be scrubbed on your hands and knees. And Mother, of course, had me scrub part of it, and I had to scrub the wash bench, the cellar, the upstairs, the steps going upstairs. Start at the top and work down and not use too much water so it would leak through. And then the washstand, and do a little something about the cupboard whenever necessary. And then all the different benches. We had only one chair, one or two. We had the rocking chair that Grandpa sat in. And then maybe another chair or two they'd brought with him from Northfield. Well, anyway, all the rest were benches, and unpainted, of course. And actually, I had all them to scrub. Then Mother also decided that in fly time, I had to take everything out of the windows and put clean paper in there, wash the windows, and put the plants back. And that was my job. And then a part of the floor, coming from Grandpa's bedroom, and then around to the front of the stove. Well, at least I learned how to scrub. But, well, anyway, along would the old man Willeen come, and his wife, and a certain number of children. It all depended. Sometimes it would be more, sometimes less. But they figured, I guess, as many as would possibly fit around the table. Well, anyway, they came. And they'd sit there, and the old man's whiskers would bob up and down. He had a long beard, black streaked with gray. And he'd sit there with his mouth going steady, while Mother was trying to finish scrubbing the floor. And, of course, we always used to make potato lefse. And I don't know, that seemed to be one of the things that my mother liked to make. And I remember Jake would sit beside the stove and keep turning the lefse. We always had lefse. And in the fall, of course, we still had butter. Later on, cows would get so that they wouldn't milk enough. The cream wouldn't amount to very much. They never had any grain for the cows, just hay. We're lucky to have enough of that. Well, anyway, then here old man Willeen would sit, chewing and chewing, talking in Swede, of course. I never listened to him. Then Mother would get through, and she'd set the table and make coffee and set the greedy humbugs up to the table and give them whatever there was. And they mostly, they never stopped eating. I remember how Esther chewed with her mouth open. That was one thing that I had never seen done before. Well, I don't know whether she does now or not, but she did then. And Ruth would just squeak if you talked to her. She was so shy. Hannah never said anything either. Esther had a mouth on her just like her dad. The old lady was a good one, too, to fill in. They certainly knew how to talk. Neither would they eat pork or rabbit. They said it had to chew the cud and have a cloven hoof to be fit to eat. Well, a pig didn't chew his cud, and a rabbit chewed his cud but didn't have a cloven hoof. So one time she came over there to sit around, and Mother had got some rabbits, and we always cooked the back and the hind legs, and they were pretty good, just tasted about the same as chicken. Well, anyway, then she sat up to the table, and Mother had made this rabbit stew, and she had dumplings with it. And so she sat there eating away, and then she was kind of filled up finally. She kind of drew her breath, and she said, "That was good chicken," she said. "Oh, that wasn't chicken," Grandma said. "That was rabbit." I think she enjoyed the fact that Mrs. Willeen had gotten to eat rabbit. "Oh, my," she said, "I didn't know that. You should have told me." "Well, I just put it on the table. You can eat it or leave it." She said, "Well, I don't believe in eating rabbit." "Well, I don't think it'll kill you. We eat it right along if you don't happen to have anything else." Well, I never forget that. It tickled me. I thought it was good for her. Well, probably I should tell you about a meeting we went to one time. It was in a bachelor's house up along the river. It was the man who used to have that land was named Casperson, and the post office was named for him, too, after he left the town. He wasn't there anymore. The place stood empty. And this was summertime, and they got the idea of having a meeting. I don't know who was responsible for it, but Mr. Wooleen was going to preach. Well, of course, we all went, and they had put up some 2x4s right up against the wall to sit on. And there were other places to sit, but that is where Mother and I sat anyway, or tried to sit. It was just a 2x4, you understand, and it wasn't even out away from the wall, so you could kind of hang over it, you know. No, you had to just sit kind of on the edge, right up close to the wall. You can imagine how you'd feel. And, of course, if I dared to move, you know, Mother would give me a terrible, powerful look. So I had to try to hang as silently as I could. First on one ham and then on the other. I imagine I was practically black and blue by the time the old man quit. Well, he just talked and talked and talked. And, of course, I didn't listen to a single word he said. I understood the Swedish all right, but I didn't particularly approve of it when he talked it, and as long as he talked it. He kept on and on and on. Finally, after about 3 hours, he said, "Jag skulle väl sluta nu, son. Men den ingenting mer, son. I never let that go. Well, I suppose I should quit now. But there's one thing more. Can you imagine? Ingenting mer." Yeah. Well, then he took another sound. It seemed to me like about a century. It wouldn't have been so bad if I could have had a decent place to sit. Well, I just think it kind of served Mother right in a way. She always kind of stuck up for the old bugger. She said, "I kind of like to listen to Mr. Wooleen." Well, there's no accounting for likes. I couldn't say that. I didn't care about it. I know that. I never forget the torture and the torment of that meeting. Well, we've had our supper. Pot roast, potatoes and brown gravy, and I had a couple of olives. Well, the dogs had their dishes, too. They sure enjoy the ordinary food in place of the canned dog food. And I got a letter from Janet and a picture of each of the little girls, and my, are they ever lovely. They look completely different, too. I suppose probably, is it Julie? Irene will take after her father more, maybe. Anyway, her hair is very dark, I noticed. She looks like a tiny little doll. Well, I remember when Janet was 2 years old. It was the time that you came up to California, or when I was there with Joy, and I went back with you. I remember little Janet. She was the cutest little kid and smart. You know, just 2 years old. And I remember, you know, you and Ted went into a restaurant on the way, and I stayed out in the car with the children, and I felt so punk because of that grass poisoning. And here little Janet began singing, "Give me 5 minutes more, give me 5 minutes more. Let me stay in your arms. Here am I begging for only 5 minutes more. Only 5 minutes more of your charms." All week long I've dreamed about our Saturday date. Don't you know tomorrow's Sunday? You can sleep late. She knew all the words and the tune perfectly. Now, I can't imagine very many children being that clever. And you know, she looked so cute. You know, the next time I saw her hair had gotten real curly. But when she was 2 years old, it was straight. And maybe it'll be the same with Aunt Naomi, because I noticed her hair is straight, excepting she'd evidently made some curls on top of her head. She's just as cute as she can be. And honestly, I think it must be wonderful for them to have those two little girls. They are close together, but then it'll mean that they'll be real close to one another all their lives, probably for that reason. There's a sliver of a new moon tonight. I very seldom get lonely, but I have more things to remember than I have to look forward to. I remember when you kids were at home and we used to go together to church and to prayer meeting. Well, I guess there isn't too much left on this tape now. Today is Monday, the 23rd of April. I got a call from Ming last night. It was just midnight and I was just getting into bed when I heard the phone ring. So went back and there was Ming to wish me Happy Easter. I guess he's got to look for a new place now for his business since the one he's been occupying has been sold. I hope his successful place is somewhat near where he has been. I haven't heard yet. Well, he said last night he hadn't so far found any. I haven't been very well lately. I got the piano moved out and all the different things that had to be done then after that, get the corner cleaned out and things set up and all. It is a little bit too much for me, I guess, though I had help. Daphne and Vernon helped me some, but just the same. Well, Daphne helped me and we got the carpet shampooed, so that helped. And all in all, and another thing, I got up early to move my furniture back after the rugs had dried, and I fell down. I don't know why I fell or how, but the bookcase fell onto me, and I had quite a time finally getting up again. I'm not very much about getting up. Like an old horse, once I get down, I'm inclined to stay there. But I did finally manage to get up, but I was sore in quite a few different places, and it was a sort of a shock to me, too, because I haven't been very well since. In fact, quite poorly. However, I managed to get along. Yesterday, Easter, Daphne came up with some Easter goodies, and the things, of course, I can eat. It isn't everything. And Anne and the children came, too, and Anne had brought me a loaf of homemade bread and a carton of frozen bean soup. I haven't tried the soup yet, but I have eaten the bread. The little loaf of bread tasted good, homemade. I could bake some, I suppose, but I haven't really felt like I thought, well, if I start to bake, then I'll maybe eat too much, and that wouldn't be good either. Well, anyway, they were over here, and Marjorie called me, sent me a card, and called me different times. She's got her work now. That woman is working at Clair, so she's got her work, and of course that's a good thing for her. She needs to earn something. Lloyd had called her Easter and told her that Hazel, that woman he ran off and lived with, is now getting a divorce.